All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Well, once again, my name is Jeff Rasmussen. I'm an outreach and education program manager here with the Clean Buildings team, joined by alongside Dylan Ackerman, our compliance specialist with the Clean Buildings team. And then also in the room with us, we have James Witherington, Judy Darst, Donnie Westfall, and Robert Marino here from our team to help answer any questions that come through throughout the presentation. And again, as a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. And if you have questions along the way throughout our presentation, please feel free to drop those into the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. Our team are happy to answer those as best as we can. And then we'll have a live Q&A session after the presentation where we'll take your questions submitted, or you can come in live and bring those to us as well. So, um, so let's get started here. We go to the next slide. Again, I want to introduce everyone to Commerce. Commerce, our mission is to strengthen communities from housing and homelessness, infrastructure, broadband, community services, and then of course we are here in the energy division. Today's presentation includes, Dylan, if we can move to the next one here. So here's our agenda for today's presentation. You can see it looks pretty robust, and it is. Lots of good information to go through, but again, please, we're here to help. So if you do have those questions throughout the presentation, please let us know. All right, so just a quick kind of recap of why we're here. So buildings have a profound impact on the environment. As you can see here in this chart, even though it's from 2015, building emissions is second leading cause of greenhouse gas pollutions, right behind transportation. And even with recent data showing some improvements in this, and thanks to a lot of the efforts that are out there, emissions from buildings is still the second highest leading polluter within the state of Washington. And so in an effort to help reach our goal, I'll explain kind of how the Clean Buildings Act and Clean Building Performance Standards came into effect. But if we go to the next slide, I'm going to do a quick intro of our team here. So I mentioned the energy division. Within that energy division, we have our clean buildings, or our buildings performance team led by Emily Salzberg. And within Emily's team, we have our program team led by Anna Lynn, along with Dylan, myself, and Robert. Our technical assistance team led by Luke, along with Judy, Donnie, and James. And then our incentives team led by Josette, along with Derek, Brittany, and Sam. And then, of course, our data team. And if you've been on this journey with us for a while, you know the work that the data team is also doing here. That team is led by KJ, along with Michael. So how did we get here? As a result of that data that I showed you earlier, the Clean Buildings Law was authorized in House Bill 1257 in the 2019 legislation based off of ASHRAE 100, which covers energy efficiency in existing buildings. And again, this is existing buildings. New construction has a different program that we don't address within the Clean Building Performance Standards. Now, during this time, Commerce developed amendments to the Standard 100 to conform, with the Clean Buildings legislations. These can be found in WAC 19450 that you see on your screen there. Now, initially, the Clean Buildings Act, the performance standards covered Tier 1 buildings, which included buildings over 50,000 square feet, excluding parking garage. Later on, it was expanded to cover 2 buildings, which are buildings 20 to 50,000 square feet, 20,000 to 50,000 square feet, and multifamily buildings over 20,000 square feet, which is our topic for today. Now, during this time, Commerce was charged with such tasks as rulemaking, notifying building owners, administering incentives, and supporting the mandatory compliance. So all that, a little bit of a background. I know some of this is new for some, refresher for others. But Dylan, let's go ahead and jump into the meat of the presentation here, and I'm going to turn this over to you.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Hi, everyone. I'll be reviewing multifamily buildings, defining some of those key terms slash acronyms that we use, and going over requirements, all before jumping into benchmarking specifically for multifamily buildings. First off, for starters, this is up on your screen is the actual definition of a Tier 2 covered building. As Jeff summarized, Tier 2 buildings are buildings that are greater than 20,000 to 50,000 square feet, excluding parking garage, and this also includes all multifamily buildings that are greater than 20,000 square feet. Just as a short refresher here with the word multifamily, when we refer to multifamily, we are talking about a building on contiguous property containing sleeping units or more than 5 dwelling units where occupants are primarily permanent in nature. What this will typically include is the buildings like apartments, senior living, most cooperatives, and specific condo buildings that have more than 20,000 square feet of common area space. A couple of the misconceptions we have and things I want to clear up early on, multifamily does not include things like senior care facilities, dormitories, or prison slash incarceration facilities. So really carefully kind of distinguishing between residential and institutional usage for these residential properties. Jumping in as well for condominium compliance. We have an entire FAQ sheet dedicated to condominium compliance specifically, which a colleague can hopefully share in the chat. But in essence, condominium buildings are covered by the standard only if the common space in the building is above 20,000 square feet. If the contiguous commercial space within the building is more than 20,000 square feet, or if the total of common space plus owner association owned commercial space is above 20,000 square feet. And just for people paying attention here, an example of a common area in a condo might be spaces like gyms, fitness centers, community rooms, or lobbies. The common areas do not include actual sleeping units. Next up here, building notification. Right now, we are in the late stage process of identifying Tier 2 buildings. For Tier 1, we had approximately 8,300 buildings. And while we don't have an exact estimate of the Tier 2 building count, our data team is working hard to ensure we have this notification complete by July 1st of 2025 and meeting our deadlines. After we finish with identification of these buildings, they'll be added to the Clean Buildings portal, and Commerce will subsequently provide building owners with notifications of their requirements in coordination with compliance of the standard. Next up here, we've got compliance schedules. I'm going to skip past these Tier 1 compliance schedules and just focus on this orange bar, which is Tier 2 buildings. This will encompass all multifamily buildings. And that timeline for compliance is the compliance deadline is July 1st, 2027. And this standard has a 5-year compliance cycle, meaning that buildings will be expected to comply every 5 years following that deadline. As of currently, we begin accepting compliance applications for multifamily Tier 2 buildings on July 1st of 2025. Up here, we've got the tier 2 requirements. This will apply for multifamily buildings. There are three main requirements. There is the benchmarking of the the building, and actually taking a quick step back because I use the term benchmarking. When I use that, I am referring to the process of getting aggregate building energy use in a monthly format, allowing you to look at your actual yearly building energy use and compare it. And we'll be continuing to talk through this, but understanding benchmarking is an important part of this presentation here. The other two requirements are creating and implementing a operations and maintenance program, as well as an energy management plan. And for note, there are a couple key parties that will be responsible for compliance with the standard. A couple of those key roles are the building owner, which is ultimately responsible for compliance. One thing to note for multifamily buildings, tenants are not held responsible individually for compliance. That is the individual or entity possessing title to the building. In the event of a land lease, the building owner is the entity possessing title to the building on leased land. As you'll see here, the qualified energy manager is an individual designated by the building owner, and this can be an internal employee, such as a facilities manager, or it could be someone like a hired consultant. And the qualifications for being a qualified energy manager here are they have 2 years of experience, including educational and or professional experience with commercial building operations and or building energy management, in addition to successful completion of the Clean Buildings Tier 2 training program, as specified by the authority having jurisdiction, Commerce. And I do want to pause here quickly to say that Commerce is in the process of working to get those qualified energy manager trainings out. They will be on-demand free trainings available both through multiple options starting this summer. So we're really excited to be able to offer those for groups. In addition to this, you can also have an individual who meets the definition of a qualified person, which we won't go into quite as much today, but if you have more questions on qualifying or what it means to be a qualified energy manager, we have additional resources on the Commerce Clean Buildings website. The qualified manager will be ultimately responsible for establishing the energy use intensity target, calculating the building's measured energy use intensity, and reviewing and submitting forms documenting compliance. And now's a really good point to mention, since this is a topic on benchmarking. Benchmarking is something that the building owner can start and begin doing themselves. The building owner can do this work. The qualified energy manager is responsible for reviewing and eventually submitting those materials. But as I'll go into a little bit more, this is something that's supposed to be accessible for building owners, facilities managers, whomever is responsible at your building. Next up here, we have the Tier 2 compliance pathways. As you can see, there are two pathways. The first pathway is by achieving reporting compliance, which, as I already established, means doing building benchmarking and determining a target energy use intensity. Now, this is determining a target, but Tier 2 buildings do not have to meet that target at this time. And then they are also going to develop and implement those operations and maintenance programs and energy management plans. That is reporting compliance. The other pathway for compliance is by applying for an exemption certificate, which means that the building will not be expected to benchmark energy use or develop/implement EMP or an O&M programs during this 5-year compliance cycle. You might be asking yourself, what kind of buildings are exempt? And we have just a brief list here. There's certainly more information and requirements, but some of the basic requirements are for an exemption would be at least 50% of the conditioned floor area is unoccupied. If the building has less than 20,000 square feet of conditioned space, if more than 50% of the floor area is designated as factory group F or high hazard group H. I don't think this would apply for most multifamily buildings, but I certainly learn about new buildings every day. Exemptions would also include agricultural structures, buildings that are pending demolition, or in some cases, financial hardship. One key thing to note here is that the exemption application timeframe it allows for submissions up to 2 years prior to compliance. So exemptions can be submitted as early as July 1st of 2025, and they should be submitted no later than 180 days prior to the compliance deadline. Another thing to note, even if you get an exemption for this compliance cycle, you are still expected to achieve compliance for future review cycles. All right, with some of those requirements and pathways defined a little bit, I'm going to go into multifamily benchmarking and specifically the process and kind of steps that might happen for multifamily buildings. Just taking a peek at this visual, I like to put this on here because it's showing that benchmarking is really the first step in the process. And today we'll really just be covering the benchmarking topic. The next step after that would be setting a target. And if you want to learn more about setting a target for your building, we have a presentation from just a couple weeks ago where I went over the process for developing energy use intensity targets. But today I'm going to keep it pretty confined to just benchmarking. All right, up here we have the basic steps for benchmarking. The first step will be creating an account with the Energy Star Portfolio Manager. This is a relatively easy process, and if someone's able to share the link in the chat, this is something that you can do for free just by clicking the link and going and creating an account. Your next steps would be establishing your building and setting it up in the portfolio manager. But then after you have that account created, you can go forward and begin with the next step, which would be contacting your utility provider, getting that energy use data, and finally establishing the weather normalized energy use intensity for your building. After this is done, and I'll kind of show what this looks like a little bit, you'll be, those kind of following steps would be creating a EUIT and then comparing your weather normalized energy use intensity to the target. And like I've said previously, but want to make sure people know this, even though we are having groups establish and report their energy use intensity, they are not required to meet a target at this time. All right, going into actual energy data collection. Metering is not always consistent. I have a couple charts on the right which highlight some of the variance in metering based on different types or numbers of units in buildings. And a couple key takeaways to pull from this as you're looking through it are, you'll see that multifamily buildings are almost always not just a single meter for the entire building. where that would be very convenient for the benchmarking process, it's a little bit different. And uh, notably in this graph, 80%, 87% of all units are metered separately for electricity. And for condos, they're even more likely to be individually metered. Uh, Compare this to natural gas, and you'll see natural gas, on the other hand, is only metered separately 43% of the time. Another key thing to note here are that metering configurations and the way it's set up will vary based on the building type, whether it's an apartment, a co-op, or a condominium, but it'll also vary depending on the size of the building. In this second table, table 11, and all of this data is coming from the United States Energy Information Administration, you can see that based on the number of units, they actually have differences in how often they'll be metered separately or together for electricity versus natural gas. And all of that is kind of a segue into covering the actual benchmarking process, which when we're talking about all of this meter data coming through, for your purposes, you're trying to get aggregate whole building energy use, which means unless I'll cover it a little bit later, but being able to get full energy, full whole building aggregate data is a very convenient step that can help with ease of benchmarking. And kind of this first step here is finding out if your building's utilities have a web service sharing. I have a tool, it's called the Energy Star Utility Map. Hopefully it can get shared in the chat. But as you can see on the right, this tool is exceptionally useful for, you can plug in the zip code of your building and it'll inform you if your respective electricity, natural gas providers do direct sharing via the Portfolio Manager web service. And it'll also give you utility contact information, which means this is as easy as putting in your zip code and it'll give you contact information and a website, because all utilities have a slightly different process for getting you whole building energy use. But having this one tool makes it so that you can go in, figure out what your next steps are, and make that request from the utility. A couple methods for actually inputting energy consumption into Portfolio Manager. I put these in order of most ideal to least ideal. This first option, direct upload, is the most straightforward benchmarking strategy. This process allows your utility to share data directly into Energy Star Portfolio Manager. And in many cases, it can do it on a continuous basis, meaning that you make this request once and they'll keep providing that whole building energy usage monthly moving forward. That's the most ideal, but say in instances where they can't do direct upload, there are other options, and one of the other options is providing you that energy use data in a compatible electronic format. So I have an example of like an Excel sheet here, but and I'll go into a demonstration of how that might look. But electronic format also allows you to very quickly upload your energy usage into Portfolio Manager and begin comparing it quicker. The final third option is manual utility bill upload. Especially for multifamily buildings, this is an option, but certainly not the easiest method. When I think of this method, I think of an instance where I had a multifamily building with 8 different utility meters, and going through old photocopied utility bills to try to get energy usage is probably not the most convenient or useful method, but it is something that you could do, which is just pulling your actual energy usage from a utility bill. All right. Right here, I'm going to set this up, but I wanted to provide a a quick demonstration of that process for taking electronic data, like an Excel file with energy usage, and putting it into Energy Star Portfolio Manager. So if you see on the left, we have, this is a templatized format where if you have your data in this format, you can upload it all very conveniently into Portfolio Manager and begin looking at this in terms of graphs and calculated energy use intensity without having to do that all yourself. All right. Uh, Let me just pull this up. Uh, Jeff, could you confirm that everyone can see the Portfolio Manager website here?
I can see it. Yeah, Dylan.
Perfect. Thank you. Just wanted to make sure. Right here, we've got an example multifamily building, and you'll see it does not yet have a weather normalized site EUI, which is that value we're trying to get to at the end of benchmarking here. And what you can do once you've created this building and set up a meter is you can go into your meter and just take that, in this case, it's an Excel file, and upload it. Alternatively, with that manual data entry, it might look a little bit more like this, where you're going in and putting in the start date for each month, your usage manually, and everything else, and then adding that. I'll just keep this up here. One thing to note, well, I'm going to leave this blank line up as an example, but this next process is you'll do upload data in bulk for the meter. You'll grab your bulk upload data and put it into the system. After you do that, it'll take that formatted energy data and put it right into Energy Star Portfolio Manager, and it'll have everything pulled into here. I'll show you next kind of what that does. One key thing to note as you're doing this benchmarking process is Energy Star does not like empty lines. So pay attention to this blank line. If I go to submit this and I don't have this information filled out, it will give me a error message saying I have not put start date, end date, or usage for a meter. So make sure that as you're going through this, make sure that every entry has been filled out correctly. In this case, I'm going to just delete this one blank entry and save everything else. It will now, looks like it's showing that I updated it today, and it will now allow me to look at the whole list of data, but I'm not going to look into monthly at this point. Now that I have this all in place, I can go back to my multifamily building, and I believe it'll just have me, it already pulled it up. In this case, it has now filled in, based on my energy usage, it's filled in a weather normalized site EUI for me. Right now, it's showing a current site EUI of 29.9. And kind of that next step, once you have this in place and you've looked at it, your next step would be comparing that to the target, which if folks were around for my last presentation when we went over developing an UIT, here's an example of the pre-calculator tool where you can put in that building information. In this case, I put in multifamily housing, and it'll create a target right away. So this was a building in Thurston County, and it was built before 2016, and it has a energy use intensity target of 32. I would then merely compare that to, looks like that page has now decided to stop loading, but I would now merely compare that to the 29.9 figure, and I would see that that building is meeting the target. At this point, you don't actually need to meet the targets, but it's useful to compare it and look at how your building is doing compared to others. Now I'll just put it back into the slide deck. Thanks for going through that demonstration with me. I really want to pull away from this that uh, direct upload is the easiest method, but electronic upload is also a very good option for your building. And worst case scenario, manual entry of this energy data is very possible.
Hey, Dylan, real quick, I just
Yes.
saw a comment in the Q&A from
Hmm.
Michael.
Okay.
We'll quantify this as a pro tip, I guess.
Okay.
Direct upload from utilities is generally pretty good, but sometimes the link from the utility to the PM account breaks. So something to keep an eye on for folks that are doing the direct upload. So sounds like it's still the great option, but just like with any electronic platform, um, there might be that occasional break too. So
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for mentioning this, Michael. As you're going through these processes, you always want to make sure that that the utility has continued sharing and that the share doesn't break or stop for any reason. If that does happen, certainly reach out to your utility to reestablish the sharing, which does happen. Moving on to next slide here a little bit, covering penalties. What happens if you do not comply? Right up here, we've got the maximum penalties. This is if a building did not comply at all for a compliance period. They could be penalized up to 30 cents per square foot. So an example below here, if you have a 30,000 square foot building, that penalty would be about $9,000 for the building maximum. But say you have a very large building, say you had a 50,000 square foot building, the most you could be charged in penalties would be a number up to 15,000. So compliance is really important, and we want to make sure that people are achieving it and not getting penalized. But that is the ultimate consequence of non-compliance. Now that I've mentioned penalties, I want to mention incentives because the tier two buildings are eligible for the tier two incentive program. And this incentive uh, of a similar 30 cents per gross square foot is being offered from July 2025 through June 1st of 2030. And this is currently a pool of 150 million that is out for buildings. And in order to receive this, a building would need to be eligible. So uh, they would need to be a tier two building that has a qualifying utility. And we might go into that a little bit more, but as long as you have a qualifying utility and you achieve reporting compliance, you are eligible for that incentive. It is also worth noting that we are going through a process for enhanced incentives. Right now, we have some information on the Clean Buildings website, but we are continuing the process of determining what that may look like. With that, I think I've gone through most of the benchmarking topics today, so I'm going to pass it off to Jeff for support, resources, and the CBPS website.
excellent. Thanks, Dylan. All right. So for those that have been with us before, this will look familiar. If this is your first time with us, the big message I want to bring home to you is that the Clean Buildings team is here to support you. We know that going through this process can be tricky, it can be complex, and we do have a lot of resources and support available to you. If we were to go to the next slide there, Dylan, this really just shows some of that no cost support that's available. Of course, you've got your Clean Building team. Many of us here on this call available to answer questions, connect with you. We do a monthly Clean Building Performance Standards office hours. This is a time just to come connect with us, ask your questions, walk through your scenarios with us, or really just to hear what other building owners or those going through the process are experiencing, and possibly pick up any tips. These are held on the fourth Tuesday of every month from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. And I know Robert is keying in the link to that, so I encourage folks to register for that. And I apologize, I don't have my calendar up, but again, fourth Tuesday of every month. The utility accelerator programs are another great resource offered. And then, of course, our Smart Building Center, hosted by Building Potential, has a no-cost help desk that's available for folks going through this process. And then, being said, we're topic of the day is the benchmarking. Energy Star Portfolio Manager has a great resource. Now, when we send the slides out to everyone, all these resources are hyperlinked, so don't worry about having to write down the links or anything like that. Those will be coming to you. Now, within our website is a great resource in itself. There's a couple ways to reach us. With our customer support ticket, and we'll drop that link in the chat as well. But if you've got a question or an issue with something coming up with your building in regards to the performance standards, submit a customer support ticket. That comes to our team here. After we have a chance to review it, if it's something that we cannot answer, we'll get it to those subject matter experts that can, whether it be the technical team or the incentives team, or data. If you don't have the link, you can always email us at buildings@commerce.wa.gov is another great way to get a hold of us. Now, within that website, of course, we have a lot of our trainings and resource guides available. As I mentioned, we record all these trainings and post them on our website. If we go to the next slide, you can see just a sampling of the past trainings that we've hosted here recently. And then, of course, there's many more prior to January 23rd that you see there. The one that Dylan was mentioning earlier, I believe, is the developing the EOIT for Tier 1 and Tier 2 buildings. And so kind of coincides with a lot of what was being discussed today. Now, going forward, as we get close to launching Tier 2, perfect, there we go. We've got our office hours. We'll continue our benchmarking discussions specifically for Tier 2 compliance. In May, we will host another session of our Clean Buildings 101. This is a great introduction to folks that maybe are new to the performance standards or need that high-level refresher information. So again, that'll be on May. And then something that has been widely asked for and requested numerous times is a little more information or guidance on decarbonization of the district energy system. So that one is coming up tentatively right now for May 22nd. And again, all these will be recorded, posted on our website, but when you get the slide deck, there will be links to register for those events. So, all right, and then excellent. So beyond the presentations and the trainings we do, we really want to take an opportunity to, again, let you know that we are here to support you. If there are community groups or industry groups that you're a part of that you feel need to hear this information or would like some additional training, please let us know. Reach out to us at that buildings@commerce.wa.gov and let's connect on that. Otherwise, you can see here with the different wide range of outreach, education, and support programs that we currently do offer, and we're always adding to it as well. So at the end of the day, like I said, we are here to help you walk through this journey. So we are going to transition to our Q&A here. And again, for Q&A, encourage folks to go ahead and drop your questions in the Q&A there at the bottom, or raise your hand. We can bring you in live. I do see a hand up here from Carl. And Carl, I appreciate your patience. I just want to kick off our Q&A and open this up real quick because there's a few questions we've gotten ahead of time. Dylan, I know you want to touch base, and then I will bring Carl in.
All right, thank you. Before we went into Q&A, I just wanted to cover a couple of the questions that we get that most frequently for multifamily buildings and make sure I'm answering things that maybe you hadn't even thought of. First question here that we get somewhat frequently is, does that 20,000 square foot threshold mean per building, an individual building or per property? And kind of the example that we'll see often is somebody will mention a building that's like, they'll go, we have a property that has 200,000 square feet, but all individual buildings are, say 15,000 square feet. And they're kind of asking, are these expected to comply as one big building? And the answer is no. The CBPS requirements are applied to individual buildings and building complexes. So if you have say like a bunch of multifamily units on a property that are all like say like 6,000 square feet, even if their energy metering is together, none of those are covered buildings under our standard. Next question here is it required to have a qualified energy manager in place before you start work on benchmarking documentation? Or is that a recommendation? While building owners can do benchmarking and develop compliance materials, the qualified energy manager is required to review, compile, and submit compliance documentation. So as a building owner, you are certainly welcome to begin starting this benchmarking process and get these together, but you may need to wait until you have a qualified energy manager in order to actually do the review and final submission in our portal. Last question that we've gotten for multifamily is, do these rules apply to public housing? And the answer is yes. These rules do apply if the public housing meets the definition of a tier 2 covered multifamily building.
Excellent. Thanks, Dylan. So I know we get those very frequently, so hopefully that helps folks on this call. Carl,
I'll just bring it back.
I'm going to bring you in here. Perfect. All right, Carl, I appreciate your patience and hanging in there with us with your hand up. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just to confirm, thanks for taking my question. For a garden style building, it would only fall under tier 2 if one of the buildings was greater than 20,000 square feet and that 20,000 square feet was air conditioned.
If it was conditioned under, and sorry, we use the definition of conditioned or semi-heated to refer to being heated or cooled. And no, there are many multifamily buildings in the state of Washington that are not air conditioned, but they are considered conditioned spaces where they're controlling the air temperature.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, it's most likely heated, but one of those buildings would have to be greater than 20,000 square feet.
Yes, that is correct. You would need in order to be a covered building, it would need to be above the 20,000 square foot threshold.
Yeah, one of the multiple buildings on that property.
Yes, that is correct.
Not the sum of all building square footages.
Yes, and thank you, Carl, for coming on and asking that question again, because that is a really important thing, and it's very common to have a bunch of smaller multifamily buildings on a property, and our standard does apply individually to buildings.
That's great. Yeah, I'll just encourage you to clarify that because a lot of multifamily owners are asking that question with garden style. Just give a FAQ, give an example, and it should quell a lot of these questions.
Thank you, Carl. I appreciate that.
In regards to the timeline, it looks like Tier 2 reporting starts July 2027, and then ComES evaluates and gives report to the legislature in October 2029, December 2030. There's Tier 2 performance standards that are adopted, and then rules take effect pending any action by legislation. So really, we need to start the report. We need to start the reporting process by July 2027, or do we need to submit a report by July 2027, which would mean we would need to start benchmarking before July 2027?
Very good question, Carl. Yes, you will need to benchmark and submit benchmarking reporting by July 1st of 2027. For anyone who isn't looking at exactly what Carl was seeing, Carl's referring to possible the future where following this compliance cycle, Commerce will take the data that we've received on buildings, how buildings are performing, and use that to make a recommendation to the legislature on energy targets. This is something that, although Commerce is making this recommendation, there will not be standards going into effect without the legislature would need to decide and act on that. And if those targets went into place, they would not begin before, could not start before they could not start before this next compliance cycle.
Which is what, 2031?
25 years later would be 2032, the compliance deadline.
Got it. And back to that July date to submit reporting, we would need to start benchmarking before. How much data do you need to essentially be in compliance in submitting a benchmarking report? Is it 3 months, 6 months? Like, when is the drop dead date for a multifamily owner to start the benchmarking process?
Carl, I see where you're coming. I see where you're going with this question. And yes, for this standard, you will need to have 12 months of energy use data in order to create an annual energy benchmark for the buildings. And a key thing to note is that although that's 1 year of benchmarking data, there is a delay from when your energy usage occurs and when utilities can report that data to you. So I would not wait until July 1st of 2026 to begin collecting this. That said, if you're making requests to your utility provider, you can go back and ask for, like, say I was working with a utility, I could go back and ask for 24 months of energy usage. So I could ask them, hi, can I have energy? If it was direct to upload, you could submit it as such. But if, say, you had to reach out directly to the utility, you could ask them for data as early as, you could say, like, January of 2024, and they may be able to get you all the way back up to, a year or two in advance. So it's not certainly too late, but it's really good to start getting this process complete and started now, so that you do have options, because some of those options, like if you're doing that manual utility bill upload, you would not be able to do that if you started it on July 1st of 2026. So Carl, very good questions. And I think the overarching takeaway from this is a process that you should be starting or thinking about now, rather than waiting a year and a half and then starting to think about what the requirements are for compliance.
And just to add to Dylan's answer, it's a 12-month period of data within the last 2 years, prior to the date that you submit compliance or the compliance deadline date.
Thank you,
I
Judy.
don't quite
Appreciate it.
understand that. Can you give me an example?
Yes.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Dylan.
yeah. Judy, I'm sure you're more than capable of the same. An example of this might be if you were, say you were really on top of it and you wanted to submit compliance reporting on July 1st of 2025. You would need to make sure that that energy data that you're reporting isn't older than it doesn't start more than 2 years prior to that date. So if you were going for July 1st of 2025, your energy data couldn't begin earlier than July 1st of 2023. So it needs to be within the last 2 years.
Got it. But when if I'm submitting a report for July 2027, you're saying that I can't use data older than July 1st, 2025.
Yes, that would be correct. When you're reporting will determine the 2 year time frame before that compliance date.
And like Dylan was reiterating, don't wait until July 1 of 2025. It would be good to start looking at your data now, see where you are. Well, then again, tier 2 doesn't need to meet the compliance, but
Yeah.
you get a
What if,
feel for,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh, you'll just get a feel for how much energy you're using and you'll get more familiar with the numbers.
Mm-hmm. What if I'm buying a building, say June 2027? Obviously, I'm a new owner. I don't have historical records of utilities. What do I do?
Look into the exemptions. There's an exemption if you don't have the data.
Mhm. Okay.
Yes.
And
Oh, sorry.
as far as the qualified person or the qualified energy, sorry, I'm just going back to my notes here. I know there's other people probably wanting to ask questions, but probably relevant to everyone. As
Qualified
far as
energy manager is what you're looking for.
qualified energy manager, can that be like a lot of multifamily owners use Conservice for billing? I know they have a benchmarking suite as well that I think a lot of owners are using for Seattle. Would like a Conservice fall under the qualified energy manager if they're a vendor who can then collect the data and then report on it?
Uh, the, I can answer this one. I've worked with Conservice more than a handful of times. If they are uploading your benchmarking data, they could have done that. But if you wanted, say, Conservice or any other group to submit on your behalf, you would need to have them submitting your actual compliance application. In many cases, Conservice might do, the utility sharing, or they might do the upload of energy usage to Portfolio Manager. But in order to have them, act as your qualified energy manager, you'd need to have them submitting your compliance documentation on your behalf.
Got it. And what is the compliance documentation?
Yes, very good question. And as we covered a little bit earlier, for a tier 2 building, this will be it'll be using our Clean Buildings portal, which will be accessible in SAW following July 1st, 2025 for tier 2 building owners. And your requirements would be uploading and connecting that benchmarking information for the building, as well as uploading documentation showing you've created and implemented an energy management plan and operations and maintenance program for that building. Once those 3 requirements are met, you can submit that entire application to Commerce for review and subsequent compliance certification.
Got it. So Conservice is collecting all this data. They're going to provide some sort of report, I presume. The qualified energy manager is going to take that report along with the 2 other documents that you described and upload it to.
Yes, and one thing to note that our Clean Buildings portal has, which hopefully we'll be able to do a demonstration in the coming months of, is our portal has an ability to connect your energy use to Portfolio Manager. So if you have your energy use in Portfolio Manager, we can connect directly to that for
Mhm.
reporting purposes. Yes.
Great. So the Clean Buildings portal can connect to the Energy Star Manager.
Yes.
And that's what City of Seattle is most likely using.
I can't speak on that one specifically. If anyone is in the chat,
Yeah, City of
knows the
Seattle
answer.
uses Portfolio Manager
Great. So
to collect benchmarking data. Yep.
So that can be connected, and then really the only two documents that needed to be uploaded were the standards and the plan.
Yes.
So essentially, if I can connect that now, when did you say the buildings portal is open?
As early as it'll be July 1st of 2025. And I see
it.
my colleague Judy went off mute. If you have more to add, Judy, I certainly
You got
welcome
it
you to.
covered. It was just backing you up.
Yeah, so essentially I can connect those on July 5th, 2025. That's the Energy Star Manager. They're now talking to each other. And then the only thing I have to do really by July 2026 or July 2027 is upload this, like the standards and then the plan.
Yep.
Energy
And
management plan and the operations and maintenance program. Is
Energy,
that what you mean by standards?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And we'll have one requirement I didn't speak to as much is tier 2 buildings are expected to develop an energy use intensity target. That process is just taking your building's activity use type, the size of the building, location, and for multifamily buildings, they'll have a weekly hours most likely of 168 per week. You'll take that information, make a target that is a component of compliance, even though you don't actually have to meet that target at this point. That'll
And
be within the portal.
Would that be included in the energy management plan, the target?
Yes, the target is one of, it'll be one of the pieces of information that you report in your energy management plan, is
Got
a
it.
comparison of your building's weather normalized energy use intensity to the target. Yes.
And who's usually developing these energy management plans? Are there templates? Are there, is Conservice doing these? Like, I'm just, as a building owner, I'm obviously not someone that is an expert in energy management plans.
Yeah. Hey, Dylan, if I can just interject, just because and we're getting some great questions, and I want to acknowledge that, but we also are running close to time, and we've got a couple other questions coming up. Carl, I'm wondering if we can connect you with our buildings team, and to continue the answering your questions, if that would be okay. I saw that.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And let's see, Nathan, I know you had your hand up here. I wasn't sure if there was a quick question you had for us. Yep, there we go. All right, go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah, so just so I'm clear, we previously talked about the penalties, which are based on square footage. That's just if you don't do the reporting. It's not based on the actual performance relative to your target. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. That is if your building did not do reporting, and actually that maximum penalty is after a year and a half of non-compliance with the reporting requirements. Yes. Meeting the standard is not a component for compliance at this time for tier 2 buildings. Oh, Robert raised their hand. Robert, did you want to jump in here?
There is another question. I just wanted to make sure it was addressed, if possible, in the Q&A, expanding the O&M piece when you're ready.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect. Nathan, I just wanted to make sure that covered your question there. Okay. Yeah.
I think they're
So Dylan, there was a question in the Q&A, and for those that are still on, thank you for your patience. I know we are at time. There was a question that came in asking if we can expand on the operation maintenance program. Robert did put a link in the chat to that guidance document, so certainly refer folks to that. But before we wrap up, Dylan, I just want to see if there's any kind of highlights of the O&M that you want to make sure that are introduced. And then for everyone else, again, this is all being recorded, and so I will send all this out to folks within the coming days. And then if there are additional questions that you have, our email is in the chat there, so feel free to email us with some additional questions. So Dylan, any highlights on the O&M to make sure we cover real quick?
Sure. There are a number of components, and I'm just gonna, you can see my screen, right, Jeff?
Yep.
I want to highlight that we have a really useful tool which has been shared in the Q&A, but this reporting tool is a checklist. And this is actually a checklist of the process Commerce goes through when we review applications. So this will tell you exactly what your operations and maintenance program should contain. And really high level operations and maintenance will be a building equipment list and your plan for maintaining and taking care of that equipment, as well as showing that you have a process and timelines. So for your preventative maintenance on those building equipment systems.
Perfect. Thanks, Dylan. So, see, it was Bill. Bill, hopefully that helps. If not, please reach out to us and we can certainly expand even further. All right. I know we're over time. Thank you so much, everyone, for hanging in there with us and joining us today. Again, this is being recorded. We'll compile everything together and email that out to you once it's available. In the meantime, there are several emails on this page, including our buildings email, or connect with Dylan or myself directly with questions. That QR code will take you right to our website with all the resources and guidance documents that we mentioned earlier. So again, thank you everyone for joining us today. I look forward to seeing you again at our next session. And until then, have a great day and look forward to connecting with you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.